Hi, everybody. I am coming on live because I've been feeling a lot of anger and rage in the last week. And just from the work that I do, somatic psychotherapy, energy alchemy, somatic expressive work, really, trauma work. I just encounter trends, common things that I want to share with you all, just to support you in validating yourself and meeting yourselves in gentle and compassionate ways. So I've been feeling a lot of rage and anger, some of it hormonal, some of it having to do with sort of astrology. I'm really, really sensitive to all of the things moving in the planets. I'm sensitive to stuff going on in the world, sensitive to people in my life. And, I'm a lot better at holding my anger, like having a container for it. It's not that I was ever like prone to big outbursts, but, and I'll tell you about that in a bit. But what I want to get to is that there has been a lot of anger and rage in the air, and I want to support you in honoring it because it is an important emotion to feel. And what I encounter a lot in the people I work with, which are usually healers and folks in, change makers, people who are doing work in fields that, where the idea is to change the world in some important way. These folks have a lot of consciousness and awareness and emotional intelligence. And they have a sense of responsibility about how they show up, right? They understand themselves as conscious co-creators in the world, which I love because it's like, we need more of this awareness. We need emotional sovereignty, emotional maturity in order to be able to show up in our lives, in our love relationships, in our work in responsible ways. But what I find is that often there's a lot of fear around really feeling anger and rage. Yes, there is an acknowledgement of that anger and rage. There's an intellectual acknowledgement, or there's just a verbal acknowledgement. Maybe people feel a little bit, but the work that I do goes very, very to the core. It goes very deep into the body. It goes into the cellular material of the body. And it's alchemical. And so when I invite people I work with to go that deeply, they get afraid. They usually step back. So there's a lot of fear around really feeling it to its depth. People go in. Sometimes I have people move energy on a cube, right? When we were seeing each other in person, now I have people hit on a bed with a tennis racket or, a broomstick or whatever they have around, or even with their own fists. And they let themselves feel it about 20 to 30%. So just 20 or 30% of that fire within. And that's a problem only because honoring that fire is energy, essentially. We need to honor that fire because emotions are energy. They're just energy. And so if you are only feeling at 20%, you are only feeling 20% of that part of your life force energy. And there's this whole 80% that is undiscovered and unused, compacted and packed away somewhere in your body, not available to you for you to do the things that you want to do in your life, right? So it's stored away, it's unused. And so you are not accessing your full human life force energy. And so, what I found in the folks that I work with, a lot of us, and I say healers, and myself included, we come from trauma histories. We have trauma in our families of origin around maybe poor boundaries. Maybe we are parentified children, i.e. children who had to take care of a parent, a needy parent. or a sick parent, or an addicted parent, or a mentally ill parent. Maybe we had parents who had narcissistic characteristics. Maybe we had an angry parent, and we decided at some point that we weren't going to be like that, that we are not going to be the angry person because we experienced how hurtful it was in our lives. And so we made a decision that we are not going to feel that, or we are not going to express that, right? So what I find, unfortunately, is that a lot of this anger, because it's simply energy that wants to be expressed, what happens is that it gets turned onto the self. And what happens is that we become very self-critical. We become judgmental of ourselves, and we become even judgmental of ourselves around feeling anger. We get angry at ourselves for feeling angry. We get upset. Why are we feeling this way? Why am I so angry? And so, yes, the judgment and the criticism is turned toward the self. And then what I want to do, or what I want to invite you to do, is to express that anger outwardly, to get really clean and crisp with it. Move it on a mattress, move it on a couch, move it on a pillow. You can even wring a towel and even put a towel like in your teeth. A lot of anger is stored in the jaw and in the pelvis. And when I talk about our sexual life force, a lot of women hold anger and rage in their pelvises. So if you are someone who is finding yourself maybe sexually like apagada, turned off, not feeling juicy and alive and able to really access pleasure, perhaps it is because you have not, or you have excess anger and rage compacted somewhere in your pelvis, right? So everything I talk about is from and is sort of like body nerd perspective, right? Somatic stuff, really deep in the body. So I can, when I see a body, when I meet with people, whether on Zoom or in person, I can feel in my own body where the person is holding their energy. And a lot of times it is held this way, right? In the pelvis, it's just pulled in. And what I ask people then to do is to express it, to bring it out, to really feel the full power of that anger and rage, because you want to be able to use that energy. Anger is neutral. Rage is just energy, right? You can use it in service, right, of like your purpose, or you can use it to harm. And sometimes when we repress it, it ends up harming other people because we're repressing it, or we harm ourselves. More often than not, the people I work with harm themselves. So again, inviting you to feel it all the way. Let yourself feel how intense you can get in your anger and rage. And it is a very deeply pleasurable experience when you allow it to be. And oftentimes the reason we're afraid of it is because we've had the experience either of a parent being angry at us and us feeling how scary that fucking is, or we experience the world as scary. We see violence out in the world and we're like, that's really scary and wrong, and I'm not doing that. And we're afraid of it because we're, maybe we had the experience of being repressed in our homes. Maybe you grew up in a home where there was just no room to feel anger and rage. It wasn't allowed to be expressed. And most people my age, or even 10 years younger, had that experience because that's what parenting was like, right? No judgment on your parents. It's just what the culture was like. It's like, especially girls didn't get to experience anger. And I know Latinx girls, females, especially, right? Sort of this whole good girl, socialization and conditioning is very intense in different cultures, or varies in levels of intensity. So at some point we decide that it's not welcome. And also we have to think about the conditioning outside of your home. in the religious institutions you participated in, or in schools, right? And even of just like the energetic templates of, right, our everyday experiences around what the ideal female is and what she says and how she expresses herself and how she dresses, and right, it doesn't include anger and rage. And we are, at the point in history, at this really beautiful place where there is this opening for what a lot of people call the feminine. I don't really like calling it that because I don't like assigning it a gender. For me, it is all good. It is all life force energy. It is all energy. And you can be in a male body, you can be in a trans body, you can be in a non-binary body. This is about energy and expression of emotion. So when you allow yourself to feel the fullness of that energy, you know your power, right? I know, and this is going to sound kind of ridiculous, but I know that I have the capacity to kill someone. If I am threatened with my life, and if somebody, God forbid, decides to mug me, I know my power. I might freeze in the moment and whatnot, but I know that I have the capacity. I have felt how deeply my rage, my inner killer, can go. And I know that I can really hurt somebody. And I do hurt people with my anger. In unfortunate ways. And I try to do that as little as possible. But also on the positive, I know the power of my anger. And that's why I can hold space for it differently in my body. Sometimes I'm overflowing with it on bad days, on difficult days. And so I'm kind of like vibrating with it. And I try to find ways to move it, either walking or maybe moving energy with my mattress just to kind of express it and get it out there, even wringing a towel or maybe I'll tell my children, I'm feeling really angry today. Hi. Maybe I'm feeling really angry today. And then I get to sort of make a little bit more space for it. But until you know how deeply that anger can go, and like the monster, the primal monster that lives in all of us, you don't know your full power. You don't know your whole capacity, the full extent of your humanness. And for me, that's part of our power is knowing that you can kill someone, let's say, or hurt them, and not doing that. That takes a lot of emotional maturity. And we're all in that process. And again, most of the people that I work with are on the other end of the spectrum, that they don't feel the anger. And in fact, I think I was one of those kids with a lot of fire, but that, in my socialization, I learned not to bring it, and I would sublimate it with food. I would stuff it with food so that I wouldn't feel it, because it was painful to feel it and not express it. And so in my training, in my 4-year somatics training, I really had the opportunity to bring it fully. And because there was so much repressed for about 4 years, I felt like I had to do an exorcism every day during my morning walks just to kind of like let it out. And I also was in a situation where I was violating some of my own boundaries, and that was contributing to my anger. So I had a lot to work off over the course of 4 years. And I still work on that every day. I pray every day just to be able to hold my fire responsibly. So, and that may seem ridiculous or funny to some of the people who know me as a very gentle, compassionate person. And I am, and I'm, you've also seen me in moments where I'm just like, nope, that's a boundary. You got to cut it off, or say no, or this and that. And that's where the fire comes in, right? Fire helps us, supports us in saying no to things that aren't good for us. And it helps us to say yes to things that are aligned and that feel really good. And part of the reason why I'm so passionate about working with healers, leaders, and entrepreneurs who are have received the call and who desire to do something bigger with their lives and don't know where to begin or want to deepen their own healing work, is because a lot of the work we do is awakening that fire. And sometimes it is through anger and rage. All right. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to hear them. I'll wait just a few more seconds. And if not, post your questions afterwards and I'll answer them after the fact. All right. Love you all. Take care of yourselves. Bye.